Hey, the Grand Forks County Commission will come to order for our regular meeting. Chairperson Peach is out of town today and she's out of town today and was going to appear by telephone, but she's unavailable. I guess she's not going to be able to do that. So you're stuck with me today. All for the record, all commissioners except Chairperson Peach are here. The first matter before us is the approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Ross to approve. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Knopf. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The next matter is the approval of the order of the agenda. I believe we have a couple of changes.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would request that the sheriff be put in just right after the consent agenda. They have a place that has to be later, and then this is a pretty short topic. And then also the same with the 11C, the chiller bid award. If we move that one right up behind the sheriff, that would be helpful.
I see Mr. Clevin is he here? I saw him here.
Yeah, he's over
Oh, he moved. He's hiding.
Got a better deal over here.
Okay.
Tougher crowd. They're asking him for money.
Okay, okay, we have a motion to move the sheriff and the chiller bid award just after the consent agenda. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Ross. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is passed. Actually, I think we have to approve the consent agenda. Can we have approval of the consent agenda motion, please?
So moved.
Motion by Ross.
Second.
Second by Ingen. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is passed. The consent agenda is passed. The sheriff is next.
Thank you, Acting Chair Falk and members of the commission. Unlike most of the rest of the crowd, I'm here requesting the commission receive money, and I'm not asking for money. So I come before you with two matters. The first one is to renew our contract with the North Dakota Association of Counties regarding our Vision Zero coordinator that is currently housed and employed in the sheriff's office. That is fully funded through the Association of Counties grant. As you recall, last year we signed this contract to renew it on a yearly basis. I'm requesting chair's signature to extend that for the next year through October 1. And I'll stand for any questions you have.
Andy, I was at the Association of Counties convention in Bismarck, and I went to the Vision Zero, as did Debbie, and Nick West. She did a very good job. So
yeah, we're very lucky to have her in our community in the entire eastern part of the state. She's done a lot of great things in the community to try to get us towards zero deaths here in the state of North Dakota, including interacting with schools, children, several counties, the racetrack, and she's put on a lot of events. So we're pretty fortunate.
Thank you. Can we have a motion to approve the North Dakota Department of Transportation traffic safety contract related to Vision Zero? Would that be fair, Sheriff?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Ross.
I'll second it if you want to add with chair signature.
Yeah, with the chair's signature.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comments on the matter? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is passed.
Thank you. The second matter is a grant awarded through the North Dakota Department of Transportation regarding to traffic safety, also along the lines of Vision Zero. The County of Grand Forks, the Sheriff's Office, is set to receive approximately $45,520 to help with traffic safety regarding seatbelts, speed, drunk driving, and underage drinking, including distracted driving as well. I'm requesting chair's electronic signature on this document along with, I believe, Ms. Nelson's. And I stand for any questions you have on that one as well.
So does this, Andy, does this encompass all of those?
This will encompass the
They
next
used to
county.
come individually?
Yep, that is correct. They're click it or ticket alcohol enforcement. They're actually all listed right on the second page of the grant award.
Move approval.
Motion by Commissioner Engen. Is there a signature required on that?
Yeah.
Digital.
Yes, it is.
Okay. We have a motion to approve. Can we get a second? Second by Commissioner Knopf. Any further comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Next, public health.
Go ahead. Philip?
Oh, wait, oh, yeah, I'm, sorry.
Thank you, commissioners, for the opportunity to speak. This is the request to award a contract for the chiller bid process that was handled by A2S in Obernell. The low bidder was selected by our engineering firm, and we are here to request that with chair approval and Ms. Nelson's financial approval for the approval on that bid. $420,000 to burn boiler and mechanical, that would be done. And we are also requesting that we have the approval to give notice to proceed while contractual letter is in process. So we don't delay the lead times if that is approved by Ms. Wamstead. And Jay Clevin from A2S is here to answer any technicals and any contractual items that are within the information that he has from bidders.
Mr. Krzyzewski, you talked to me prior to the meeting, so I'm aware of it, but could you explain to the commission why we need to proceed without a contract as quickly as possible?
We are looking at a 25-week lead time for fabrication on the chiller unit, which essentially puts us at a 6-month lead time on contractor receiving the product. So as we're aware, the chiller is our air conditioning service for our building, and 25 weeks from now at award of this contract to the low bidder puts us nearing April, at probably March, for receiving the chiller, and then they can begin construction. They'll be able to do some preliminary work beforehand. However, the big job is crane time and removing old one and putting new one up on the roof, and the cupola up on the roof as well. So with the approval of notice to proceed with documentation to follow, they would be able to get that order processed and avoid even a longer lead time on getting the chiller on site.
Okay. Questions from commission? Yes.
I think it's important to also note that amongst the bids that were received, there was one that was not opened because they failed to require or provide some technical data that was required by the bid specifications. Technically, the bidder has no right to have their bid considered. However, if the Board of Commissioners wish to waive this defect, as a technical error, you certainly have that decision within your discretion. With that said, we don't know what amount this additional bid is, because as soon as it was determined that they failed to provide this technical information, we didn't proceed further with looking at the bid. So that is an option available to the board as well, and it's within your discretion either way you wish to proceed.
Any comments?
Question from Mr. Krzyzewski?
Sure.
Are you happy with the firm that won the bid, and have you worked with them in the past?
82S has went through a fairly exhaustive questionnaire for the low bid process on this because it was considerably lower. And I would like to have Jay Clevin elaborate on that if I could as well, in making sure that the engineering process that they went through in drafting the RFP and the required scope of work is to be met. There was a little discretion in discussion that had to be met to satisfy Jay Clevin and Obernell, which was Andrew Honeyman representing Obernell. Those items were covered in his questionnaire that he can cover with you as well to make sure that we will get what we're expecting in the end with minimal conflict through the project. I would invite Jay Clevin up to elaborate on that if you could.
Thank you. So the question of Jay Clevin with AETUS, by the way, good to see y'all again. It's been a while.
Could be longer, Jay, but you keep timing to come back.
It's like a holy sock, right? Anyways, the question at hand from the commissioner is basically, experience with this particular contractor. They did provide referrals. Those referrals were checked, and admittedly, as I state in my letter of award here, or recommendation of award, it was a mixed bag. But that can be said for a lot of contractors. It could probably be said for all of us from time to time. None of those referrals kind of elevated the bid to a point of disqualification. So that was an underlying consideration when recommending that the contract be awarded to them.
Oh, go ahead, please.
Sure. Well, I just have a question. In the document that you had sent, there was some talk about with the cupola, and it seemed like there were concerns about the modifications, or that there might be anticipated modifications, and that I think that the verbiage was something about that there was little room for reasonably priced change orders. Can you explain that?
Sure. So if you look at the bid tab, which is one of the attachments within the letter of recommendation, the apparent low bidder is over $100,000 less than the next bidder. It's also relevant to note that the engineer's estimate, while we weren't the high bidder, our number was towards the high end of the received bid spectrum. So our estimate was about $574,000. The lowest apparent bid here is $420,426. And so right away, when we saw that, that's generally a red flag when the gap between bids is so great. And indeed, when we checked on their bid and validating, like you do with every bid, you always validate to make sure all the scopes included and this and that. What they had, I'll say by strategic choice, but with no direction, decided that they were able to omit all the scope of modifying the structural steel on the cupola. And one of the fundamental requirements of the project was that we modify it so in the future, when similar modifications to chiller is made, we don't have to cut the steel up again. So I could get into all the technical hoo-ha about it, but it's over $100,000 work based on our estimate. The apparent low bidder initially excluded that from their bid. But with talking to them and explaining to them that it wasn't a discretionary choice, they either put the work in their scope without changing their bid price, or their bid is disqualified. They chose and put in writing that they will do that scope of work without modification of the bid price. So that's what they've in writing have attested that is included in their bid. My reference to reasonable change orders is often when you know a contractor looks to be, I'll say adverse in an adverse financial position. In layman's terms, they think they're gonna lose money. They get pretty creative with their change orders. But the engineer, the mechanical engineer and myself, between the two scopes, it's about 85 to 90% of the contract value. And we don't see in the documents that there's any place that they could put a reasonable change order in to start carving back that money. Not saying there won't be, because any project, there's a, you know, especially here with a retrofit modification, there might be something that is a reasonable change order. But we don't feel there's any way they're gonna take advantage of field conditions to try to start recovering $100,000 of work. So in that regard, the other engineers and I are very comfortable from a project management standpoint that we can push back if we need to on any appearance of trying to kind of do cost recovery on a change order. So that's a long answer to a relatively short question, but we're comfortable that there's little to no risk in that happening on the project. Again, which is the reason we recommended an award to the apparent low bidder.
Yes, Commissioner.
Well, we've seen a number of things over the years where people miss something on their bid, and we typically don't send it back and give someone another chance for it because they know what the requirements are. In an appropriate case, maybe we should exercise our discretion. But my question is, if we did decide to go that route, would we be starting over and losing time on this thing? Because it sounds like every week and month is important to get this in place before next spring.
There's, I'll say, great time sensitivity. Now, I assume, sir, that your question is kind of a follow-up to Ms. Wamstead's question.
Well, the fact that we would have the discretion to give them another chance, you mean? That's what I'm asking.
Well,
But it's gonna take time to do that.
yeah, and I certainly wouldn't rebid this project. You know, because again, we vetted the apparent low bid and they said they'll do the work for their stated price. Yeah, rebidding doesn't seem like you get any benefit from it. You certainly aren't gonna improve the price. Yeah, all we'll do is lose time. You'll lose a month.
I don't think that was quite what you said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if I may interject, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, just for clarification's sake, there were 4 bids received, 3 of which were open, 1 of which was this lowest bidder that Mr. Clevin is speaking to. The 4th bid is the one that had the defect that would be within your discretion to waive. I don't think it would require a rebidding of the entire project. I think the remedy would be if you chose to see that as a minor defect that you elected to waive, Mr. Clevin could follow up with that contractor and get those technical details about efficiency and things like that so that their bid could be adequately considered with those specifications.
Thank you. Okay.
So
Yes.
just for clarification, then the bid that was submitted that we rejected, open that and use that.
Ms. Knopf, members of the commission, that is correct. If the commission decided to waive that defect after the decision was made to waive that defect, we could then look at the bid price. Mr. Clevin could follow up to get some of those technical details and then make a decision as far as who is the lowest responsible bidder.
I just, when I was reading through it, some red flags went up for me as I read through your letter, and so that was my concern. I don't know what the rest of the commission feels like or would like to entertain. I wouldn't have a problem
I'll just make a couple of comments. You know, I have concerns waiving defects. Because pretty soon, we might as well not have any requirements for bidding, because everybody realizes they'll just waive them and not follow through. Now, if a company can't follow the bidding requirements, I'm wondering, are they gonna be able to put our chiller in? And the other thing is, I'm reading between the lines here with what Mr. Clevin is telling us. We've got a very good bid on this chiller. They, in my mind, I think they underbid it, but they're willing to follow through with the bid. I don't think anybody else underbid. That's one of the issues. So, I guess my position is I think we should move forward with. Is it burn boiler mechanical? Is that right? Yeah.
I don't have any problem with that. I just know in the past I've always been one that's been, they just do it right.
So I'll make a motion that we do accept that bid and not waive, the circumstances aren't good enough to find a reason to waive the bid defect. And the fact is, we're in a time sensitive situation, and you folks at AE2S are optimist for believing they can get it done. So that's my motion.
I'll second the motion.
Now, do we want to include there that we proceed without a contract at the present time?
Yes, I should have put that in.
Okay, and are you fine with that, Commissioner? Okay, we have a motion and a second to proceed with the bid with burn boiler mechanical, and that we proceed without a contract with documentation to follow. Contract as soon as it can be developed. Any other comments? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you for the time.
You bet, thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Nice to see you.
Likewise.
It's always good when you have good news for us, Jay.
You're implying I've come with bad news before.
Occasionally, yes. Okay, now we can get to public health.
Stay the whole time.
Good afternoon, Chair Fulk and members of the commission, Debbie Swanson from Grand Forks Public Health. I did send out our update to you earlier this afternoon, and it is up on the screen. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the data, but spend a little bit more time on the bottom line and then answer any questions that you have. So if you go to the first slide, please, I just want to highlight a really quick summary. You can see there week by week our cases, they've been stable in the 200s, putting us at our total incidence since last March of 12,210 cases in Grand Forks County. And the other area of note and concern is the 7-day susceptible positivity rate, which has gone up almost 1 percentage point. So later on, I'll talk a little bit about our sum of tests and other vaccination efforts. If you go to the next slide, please, Debbie. This is the heat map that shows where the cases are occurring by age groups. If you scroll down to the bottom, you can see we were doing really well with cases in the upper age groups. They were in the green and the yellow, but now we have high transmission in our state and in our region. And so you can see there are more cases in all age groups across the top there, with the exception of those 8 and over, which have great vaccination rates. Next slide, please, Debbie. This is just a really quick year-over-year comparison of our new 7-day average daily COVID case rate per 100,000. The blue line is the previous year, and then the black line is the current year. We didn't have that spike at the beginning of the school year like we did in 2020, but rather a slow upward trajectory. The next few slides, I think I will pass on those. You can take a look at them as you peruse the report today. If you go to one more slide there, this is the active hospitalizations rate per 100,000 and compared by county. So Grand Forks is the black line, the lowest rate among our peer counties of Cass, Ward, and Burley-Morton. And Burley-Morton is outpacing all of the areas with larger population centers in their active hospitalizations. Next slide, Debbie. This is the vaccination status by age group. You can see that there is a large number of unvaccinated according to our data in the 19 to 29 age group. However, we have recently learned that a large percentage of Grand Forks Air Force Base residents and active duty members are vaccinated, which if we had really good data on that, they don't report to our statewide registry, we would probably push that number of adequately vaccinated quite a bit. We just don't have the numbers there, but we continue to reach out to that age group, and that is our largest population age in Grand Forks County in our population pyramid, so it's not surprising that we have a large number still to reach there.
Debbie, does the military share that information?
Commissioner Ross, we do not get data from the military. We have been working on that for decades. They do report to the Department of Defense. And the same with the VA, they report to the Department of Defense as well, but they do not report to our state registry. We know it's a pretty vaccinated population normally, COVID aside. So we have some assurance that there's some good vaccination rates there, but we aren't able to get that data into our registry. I hope someday that happens. I would really like to see that happen. It would really help us a lot, especially when we're looking at things like influenza rates and other vaccinations. Obviously, if children are enrolled in school, we know what that information is exactly reported to schools. On the next slide shows our quest to 60%, once again comparing us to the state and to the other population centers in the state. As of this date, October 3rd, we are at 48.8% of full vaccine coverage, and we continue to vaccinate just a little bit behind Cass County, but ahead of the state rate. So on the next slide, you will see what our plan is going forward. As you recall, we have a lot of vaccination partners in Grand Forks County, and we're grateful for that. There's many people that are doing COVID vaccinations and now starting boosters and flu shots as well. Grand Forks Public Health did move our vaccination efforts to the Grand Cities Mall at the former Christian bookstore. And our reason for doing that was to have main floor accessibility, close parking, very visible. We know that sometimes people have challenges coming up here to our office, and it cause bottlenecks with the operations here in the county office building. So we're giving vaccines there Monday through Saturday from 12:30 every day, and then varying times that it ends throughout the week, and then Saturdays from 10 to 2. So we have 6 days a week that vaccinations are available, and we can give first doses, second doses, or third doses. Third doses being those people that can get a third dose because of a medical condition, and now we have started giving the Pfizer boosters as well. We can scale up to 4 lanes. It's nothing like what we had at the Alara Center, but with the number of providers we have in the community, we think we have pretty good coverage. And this current model will give us about 5,000 appointments through the end of November. And as mentioned there, we're just one of 15 vaccine sites.
If I
So-
could interrupt 1 second,
Of
are
course.
people finding you at that bookstore site?
Commissioner Falk, yes, we are doing a lot of social media. We hope to do a little bit more earned media and other things to encourage it. We do have appointments, which does help, so we don't have walk-ins and have, boluses of people at any one time. They can get in and out really quickly on their designated time. If we see that start to drop off, we'll check in with our other providers. We actually meet with them twice a month to see how things are going and find out what the status of their vaccination efforts are as well, to make sure that we're, really reaching the population. So the next slide, please.
I have a question.
Yes.
A lot of people that I know in my hometown don't use social media. Is there a phone number that's a generic phone number they can call? Do you have
Yes,
that?
Commissioner Engen, yes, they can call 780-8100. That's the main number at Grand Forks Public Health Department, and we can assist them with making an appointment in our system. It's called PrepMod. We're using something different. They don't have to go online and register through an Ultra My Chart like we did when we were at the Alara Center. Yes, and we are doing some outreach in the county too, through the newspapers and other ways, but you're absolutely right, not everybody has social media, as we found out yesterday when Facebook was down. Okay, so I want to end with the bottom line, which is our SWOT analysis of how things are going. Our strength is our testing. We are continuing to do testing at UND at the High Performance Center, Fritz Pollard Athletic Center. And our testing rate is really high. We operate 5 days a week there from 7 a.m. to 11. And then our combined effort with Altru offers testing from about 12:30 to, I think it's around 6 o'clock in the evening. And so that's working out really well. And we are also utilizing Altru's laboratory for our test samples now for our PCR tests. And so people are getting their results really quickly. We are seeing increased vaccinations compared to the previous week, but that's largely due to the boosters rolling out for those seeking a Pfizer vaccine. And then as previously mentioned, the reported high vaccination rate in the Air Force Base population. So we're assuming that that's a large number of that 19 to 29 age group. Our weaknesses include the fact that we are slightly increasing hospitalizations in this county, fluctuated right around 14 to 15 for quite a while, bumped up to 20 to 21, and is now back down to 17 today. So we're watching that really closely. We do not get data on the county of residence for those individuals, but Altru being a regional hospital and serving a multiple county area. We're also seeing an increased case incidence in Grand Forks County, as I mentioned, and also a little bit of increased case incidence among those 60 and older. And this is what we sometimes refer to as breakthrough cases, or testing positive after you're vaccinated. This was anticipated, we expected it. Like flu vaccine, it's not 100% and immunity can wane, so we are starting to see some of those breakthrough cases. But the good news is the vaccine's doing what it was supposed to do, which is keep people out of the hospital and prevent serious illness and death, and it is doing that. Our opportunities are that the CDC now recommends making masks required in indoors for all people, vaccinated or not. And thank you to the Commission for your efforts on that. And then the vaccine boosters is also an opportunity for us to continue to vaccinate people and boost their immunity. The threats are the uncertainty, which we've been dealing with since the very beginning. We don't think that we'll have a case increase like we did in October, November 2020, but unfortunately North Dakota right now is a hot spot. If you look at the New York Times, it's North Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, and then West Virginia, Kentucky are the hot spots. So we need to watch that really carefully as people move from other parts of the state, come to Grand Forks and visit, asking up as who is recommended and making sure that people are vaccinated so that we don't see that high transmission in our county as well. And then as mentioned there, the sustained increases in other parts causing hospitalization, especially in the Bismarck area. So that's my report, and I will stand for any other questions. There are some additional slides there that Michael likes to always include for your review, and I'll be happy to answer anything.
Debbie, I got my booster last week at the mall. It was very easy to find, and I was in and out in 10 minutes, and I did not have an appointment. So.
Commissioner Ross, thank you for that great feedback, and yes, we do take walk-ins on our site.
I just have a couple questions if I might. So the booster and the flu you can get at the mall at the same time?
Commissioner Knopf, we are not doing flu shots at the mall at this time. We might, but at this time we're just doing COVID vaccines, but they can be administered at the same visit, like at your healthcare provider. If you sign up for a flu shot in our office, we also have COVID vaccine in our office.
Okay. And then my other question is hospitalizations. Do you have any idea how many of them are children?
Commissioner Knopf, I don't have that information, but I can get back to you on that. There is a website that we can go to and look at hospital beds that are occupied and the availability of their beds by pediatric versus adult. I'm not aware that there's any children hospitalized in Grand Forks. It's possible. There are children hospitalized, I know for sure, in Bismarck and Dakota.
And then, trying to think what another question was. Lost it.
Email address.
Yes, I do.
For any other questions, and certainly if you think of anything, you can email me and I'll be happy to get back to you or find a subject matter expert to do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, the American Rescue Plan Act overview. Is that what Mr. Ford is gonna cover with us? Mr. Ford unfortunately is unable to be with us today because of a family issue. So we'll move on from that right now and deal with that at another meeting. Next is the Career Impact Academy.
Good afternoon, Acting Commissioner Falk, members of the Commission, Keith Fund, Grand Forks Region Economic Development Corporation. Pleasure to be here this evening, and thank you for allowing us to be here today. While this presentation is beyond the EDC, it's about partners in the steering committee of the Career Impact Academy. I want to take the opportunity to thank you for your partnership and your support of the Economic Development Corporation. This conversation really is a follow-up to our presentation and when we were on August 3rd. And I want to assure you that we're not going to repeat that presentation. But we are here, as we've indicated in the memo on behalf of the steering committee of the Career Impact Academy, seeking an investment in that project for $1.5 million from Grand Forks County. The timing of this conversation, I think, is very interesting. You may know that Governor Bergen was in town today. I wasn't able to be. I was out of town this morning and just got back mid-afternoon, but I've heard from very reliable sources that, and amongst his pretty intense agenda, that he was very interested in the Career Impact Academy project and asked several times for an update and was very excited to learn of the progress that's been made that I'll talk about in a little bit. Want to just highlight, first of all, recognize a number of people in the audience, so we brought a bit some backup here, but Becca Kruger from the Economic Development Corporation, our Workforce Development Manager, and Eric Berkeley, Grand Forks Public Schools. Those two are really leading the project day to day on the ground, so they're doing a fantastic job. So I want to recognize their efforts. Mayor Brzezinski and Todd Phelan from the city are both part of a number of committees and efforts in trying to move this forward. John Onken, who I'm going to actually ask, he's True North Equipment President. I'm going to ask him to make a couple of comments on behalf of industries. I think he's been the most engaged and passionate person relative to this project and the need for it. So he's been kind enough to offer to say a few words on behalf. Barry Wilford from the Chambers here, Sherry Elgin from Construction Engineers, Tanya Schleicher from the school district as well. So great team, and there are a number of people well beyond the group that we have here that are supporting the project. Just to highlight quickly some of the information we did go over, we're not going to do the presentation. Just want to remind that 84% of the respondents, we surveyed companies in Grand Forks County. We received 117 responses, and 84% of those responses indicated that finding talent is extremely difficult in the region. So I think underscoring the need for a project like the Career Impact Academy, I don't know that I need to talk a lot about that, but I wanted to share that number. We've had a number of opportunities to engage industry through a number of focus groups, getting their input on different programming that would support the industry. We've had feedback from industry and students relative to what the project could look like, the labs, as well as the facility, and building design. We also have put together, and we each have a copy of this collateral piece that really, we call it a case statement that really underscores the need for this project. Really, we're going to first use this here today, quite frankly. We just got this off the press this afternoon, and we're going to be at the builders and traders here in about an hour and a half talking to them about the need for the project, and I think they understand the need and encouraging them for their investment as well. Some of the project points I'm going to go over real quickly. We've had a site that's been selected, the former Holiday Inn or Grand Forks Inn and Suites, depending on how long you've been in the region, and we have a path forward to secure. Contributions from match are starting to come in, and meetings are scheduled to secure that level of support needed. Just as a reminder, I think you know, but the state of North Dakota made $70 million available for the expansion of these centers across North Dakota. $10 million is a maximum grant that needs to be matched dollar for dollar with local contribution, and the steering committee intends to be aggressive and seek that investment from the state of North Dakota, which does require raising $10 million locally to support that contribution. I just want to report that Grand Forks Public Schools, through their board, has approved a $1 million contribution to the project. They will also have ownership of and be responsible for ongoing operations, maintenance, program delivery, so they will own the project. City of Grand Forks through its Jobs Development Authority, while they haven't formally approved, I think there's really good traction on acquiring the site, demolishing it, and then donating it to the project. I can let the mayor and Mr. Phelan speak to that if they'd like, but I feel like there's good momentum in that. Feels good like that's going to happen. And we have $1.1 million of contribution from industry and more than $1 million that are pending that we feel pretty good about. As I mentioned, it's an extremely important project. I'm going to cede here for just a moment and ask John Onken to come to the microphone. Again, been the most passionate spokesperson from industry about the need for this and kind of share his experience and why a project like this should be supported.
Well, good evening, everyone. I just want to take an opportunity I want to share a little background, and then I want to kind of tell you why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I co-own True North Equipment. I have a silent business partner who's more retired, but I act as CEO of the company. We have 230 employees in Grand Forks and in the region total. So from a workforce standpoint, just a statistic for you, just in my business, today I could hire 35 people today to fill positions within my company. And I look at my work in the EDC, formerly in the chamber, and the activities that I play in to be more cognizant of our needs in the community and region. This one really stood out. And speaking in front of the governor today and others, what I will tell you is we have distinct opportunity around investment. As a county, you're an employer of many people. I'm an employer and everybody else. And I looked at the room today, even with the governor and all these businesses, and I represent industry in this. And I think of the dire need and what we can do intentionally to have an impact in our community, our county, our region. And when you think about the Career Impact Academy, and I had nothing to do with the name, and I think of what we can do differently to positively impact our community related to youth and adults that want to do some skill training to maybe shift in a career path. How we do that differently in the state versus the state, other CT centers around the state. I think we have a real distinct opportunity around being intentional as a county, as a city, as industry in the investment of not only money, but time, things that are related to in-kind. When you think about what kind of training tools do you need to do the right things in all these varied industries. And to be able to cast that image up to the industry, big and small, is a huge thing to undertake. And we regularly weekly meet on this, and we look at all the industries that we're trying to touch, right? Touch points on all of these, whether it's a small gas repair station or medically related nursing or whatever, we have a distinct impact in that play. So I summarize this in 3 ways. We have a monetary investment, we have an in-kind investment, and we have really a human capital investment of our time. I look at this as an industry partner in this, that I look at working with Eric Ripley and others to invest time in what's the curriculum look like, what are the needs that we have, how do we then as a partner in that, whether it's building and trades, share our industry and the vision with students that maybe don't understand that today. Today, I think they have a very fixed understanding of what opportunities exist in the trades. They have an opportunity to move into industry and make a very strong income level and have credits that apply towards a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree or on and on. So when I look at this and I think about the investment the county can make and what the return can be, not only for you as a county, but as a community and a region, it's a phenomenal opportunity. We hope to exceed everything that we need to do to meet our match that the state is going to match us with, and take the Career Impact Academy further than just phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. I'd like to see it right to phase 3, really, right? I mean, you want to get it done right. And we have a really strong support in our community for that in our region, and just partnering with other outlying communities, whether it's Northwood, Hillsborough, and on, and how you work with others in the region, even across the river, to really make this successful journey is gonna be cool to watch. So when I think about what we're asking of you as a county, think hard and think long about what that does in terms of the investment in something that's really good to change the course of direction for many students that don't know where they're gonna go. So I just take any questions you have around this, and our team can share answers as we go. Yeah.
But, Keith, said the numbers pretty fast. What's our progress so far, getting close to that? $10 million?
Sure, but you know it, but Thank you, Commissioner Polk, Commissioner Engen. On progress to date, Grand Forks Public Schools has, through their board, approved $1 million contribution to the project. While not approved, the City of Grand Forks, through their Jobs Development Authority, is moving forward on the purchase of, demolition of, and we think contribution of the former Holiday Inn site to the project, which I understand is a value of $1.7 million. And that in-kind contribution will count and will leverage the state of North Dakota match. We have $1.1 million of industry match confirmed, with more than 1 million of requests outstanding, and well, no confirmation. We're feeling good about that. I did also mention that we have a pretty important conversation, and now it's getting close to just an hour from now, with the Builders and Traders Exchange, and their industry is, along with John's industry, needs workers, and needs a lot of them, and the awareness of that industry and the pay in that industry is not as high as we think it should be. I did want to, at the conclusions of John, Acting Commissioner, if I could just make a couple more comments. John mentioned the fact that he has 35 open positions. I wanted to mention that we surveyed companies, in Grand Forks County, 117 companies responded. And we asked sort of that same question: if you could fill all the open positions today, what would that be? And that number was more than 1,700 positions. So that's significant. I also want to report that, and remind you, I guess, that the Career Impact Academy will support careers that are in this region, for companies that are in this region. We find that 85% of students, through certain surveys, have some understanding. They've given some thought to classes, TTE courses they possibly could take in high school, college courses, and what their career might be. And what we want to do is make sure that their interest, to the degree that want to stay in the region, we introduce them to and allow them to get hands-on training for careers that are right here. That this is very much a workforce retention and a population retention effort, as much as it is a Career Impact Academy. The reason why the Grand Forks Region Economic Development Corporation, the reason why John is so passionate about this, the reason why many are so passionate about this, is because this is for students, but really for needs of industry. Well, those are my concluding comments, and I'm sure John and really anyone here from the team would be happy to answer any questions.
Well, I know from the meetings that EDC workforce has been on the agenda for about 6 years.
I did have one final comment, and it's just a sentence. We really do need your support to make this project a reality. So respectfully request your investment of $1.5 million in the project.
Deadline for that match?
Well, the deadline for the match, we intend to submit the application on or before December 1st. That's the state of North Dakota's deadline. The Grand Forks Public School, as I mentioned, it will essentially own and operate this. There's a structure where they operate a virtual center where there are 7 regional school districts that will participate in that. So again, this is very much a regional district, and the school districts in Grand Forks County will all participate to the degree that they have students that are interested in programming. And if you're interested in programming, on page 5 of your collateral highlights the different programming that will be delivered, by the way. In terms of timeline, however, the first school board meeting in November is when the school board would like to see the first draft of that. Tanya Schleicher's, she's canceled everything that she's doing from now until then to make sure we have a compelling application for the state of North Dakota. And then final approval on
November 22nd.
22nd of November, or then just some tidying up to submit to the state of North Dakota on or before December 1st. So we're getting to it. Timeline is tight, but we have a really dedicated team that is leaning into this. As I mentioned, we do believe that we need your support to make this a reality.
Any other questions? Yes, please.
So I guess the question maybe for Ms. Nelson, where would that money come from? It's not our.
Madam Chairman, the Commissioner, no, it wouldn't qualify for ARPA funds, so it would have to come from the general fund. And we are limited to 60 mils in the general fund. And next year, we're probably looking at close to 58 mils, and 1.5 million would be 4.5, close to 4.5 mils. So we're kind of, the request exceeds what we'd be allowed to levy for at one time.
Then my other question is, so it would come from property tax, right? Then my other question is how would this training center be financed beyond the initial physical building? You know, like we're talking equipment, tools, staff, benefits, monthly costs, upkeep, maintenance, and anticipated land expansions or enhancements, 1, 2, and 3, or whatever it was.
I can give you a high level, and if you want more than that, I would ask Mr. Ripley, Director of Current Sector of Education for Grand Forks Public Schools. So what we are raising money for, funding right now, is for the construction of and for major equipment of the Career Impact Academy. In terms of the sustainability, I think, Commissioner, this your question. There are a number of efficiencies. Grand Forks Public Schools delivers CTE curriculum to the district now at various facilities. There would be a consolidation of that effort at this facility. And so there would be some savings that are realized as well. There's also some potential funding sources from other participating schools, as well as some of the schools, post-secondary institutions that we have that are partnered with us, including Northland Community Technical College, Lake Region State College, and the University of North Dakota. I will say, though, for this group, and for anyone for that matter who asks, Grand Forks Public Schools, their number one issue, and they've asked us that, well, not so much as asked us, they've indicated that we need to address the sustainability issue before they will allow that application to move forward. So Mr. Ripley is in charge of a subcommittee that's working very diligently on that, if you want, and that will be part of Grand Forks Public Schools operating in terms of the ownership and maintenance and staffing of that facility, but with additional revenue sources based on the operation of the Impact Academy.
So one could come back to us at a later time
From
and request more money.
If that's an invitation, yes, but I don't know.
David said that.
Well, he was very generous the last time we were here too, but he didn't get a second. Acting Commissioner Falk and Commissioner Knopf, but that's not the intention, honestly. This is a capital campaign here. Grand Forks Public Schools will operate the facility, and they'll do so within their operating budget with additional revenue sources as a result of the operational structure of this. But in terms of ongoing sustainability on a monthly or an annual basis, not intended to approach. If there's an opportunity to expand, I guess I couldn't say that we wouldn't bring partners together and talk about the value of that and what could be invested. We're really focused right now on making sure that we have the ability to leverage the $10 million investment from the state of North Dakota.
When you ask for those monies, don't you have to tell them how you're going to sustain that?
Yes.
During that grant process?
Absolutely. Two things. Grand Forks, I don't know if Eric wants to. Grand Forks Public Schools is very interested in that as their number one concern, and of course, the grant reviewers at the state of North Dakota will ensure that it's sustainable. So I'll defer to Mr. Ripley.
Thank you.
Thank you, Keith, Commissioner Falk, and Commissioner Knopf for that question. And Keith's actually absolutely correct. It's the number one question that I get all the time. We talk about adding something new, right, to the district in terms of what is the sustainability of that. When we take a look at the proposed programs that is within that collateral piece, we're looking at roughly 15 full-time equivalent instructors. Of that 15, 12 of them are already currently employed by the school district. And so we're not talking about increasing the staff 50-fold, 100-fold, something of that nature. Really, we're talking about new programs like welding or precision agriculture that we don't currently have that program, or culinary arts. They would need a new instructor. So if we're talking about what is the cost for those instructors over time, the one thing that's exciting about this project is the State Department of Career and Technical Education is funded separately from the Department of Public Construction. And they get a fund each year from the Legislative Assembly to be able to support staffing costs of CTE programs, because those programs generally are a little bit more expensive to put together. It's a little bit harder to find staff, things of that nature. So to the tune of roughly about 50%, the state is investing in the cost of the program once they're established, and which leaves then the other 50% for the local school districts. So through a combination of again, utilizing the virtual area center as an example, our 7 surrounding school districts in Grand Forks as well that participates in our virtual center pay an annual membership fee to support the staff to then provide the programs that are being delivered to their students. And they're utilizing funding, being able to provide to those districts through the state foundation aid payments, the per pupil payments to justify that cost. It's obviously cheaper for a school district to collaborate together to hire 1 instructor than to have 6 of them hire 6 individual instructors and to be able to share those costs. And so that's the kind of sustainability model we're looking at. Certainly there's deferred maintenance and sustainability of the building itself. I know in speaking with our Buildings and Grounds Director, Chris Arnold, for the district, this facility would be property of the district. It would need to be part of the master facility plan, and it would need to be rolled in so that, you know, in year 10 or 15 or 20, that building needs work on a deferred maintenance schedule, that it needs to be figured out. Certainly, as Keith indicated, the capital campaign is to build the building now. Staffing wise, I think we have a model of success to be able to sustain that easily. And then it would be the deferred maintenance piece, which would be something certainly that we'd want to need to figure out and present to our school board. So that's a long-winded answer on a lot of different pieces, but it certainly is something that we need to address not only in the grant, but to our school board as well, and our community in general, to make sure that we're not putting something forward that we can't sustain. That would be just board management, certainly. Yes, sir.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave. I assume you've been talking to the schools that have some of the courses already. I also, am I correct in assuming that they're pretty much in favor of this kind of a centralized approach?
They are, Commissioner Falk, Commissioner Hagan. You know, courses that we looked at our existing CT classes, and so I'll use medical careers, for example. We have existing medical careers courses being offered at Red River High School and Central High School. But it would make sense for us to be able to pull the programs out of those buildings and put them into a different location, primarily because we can give them the right facility to deliver the curriculum that's there. At the same time, our existing facilities, you think about the age of Central High School, it's never designed to have a medical careers lab in it. And so we're utilizing really what a traditional classroom would have looked like and try to make it look like a medical careers lab. That limited space is really, it's restricting us from being able to provide those opportunities for students. We're actually turning away, you know, anywhere from 75 to 100 students a year who sign up for the class because we don't have the ability to expand and we have nowhere for them to go. And so we're telling kids, pick a course that really lines up with your skills and interests. And at the same time, we know that there's a demand in industry for those students. And we're saying we can't help you, go find something else. This facility will provide the right space for those programs to support them. But yes, visiting with the buildings, there'll be some programs that stay in the buildings, those that perhaps don't need specified equipment or lab space, but other ones that are very lab intensive, facility specific, those are the programs we would pull and we bring those teachers along with us into this new facility.
Eric, could you mention to the group the additional $10 million to cover mentioned today at our meeting that he's put into this?
To make this ARPA.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So it fits under the category ARPA.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Mr. Phelan. During our conversation with the governor today, the funds that were available, the 70 million original funds that the state allocated for this project through that $10 million max as a matching grant, is through the stimulus, funds from infrastructure. And the federal government came out with some different restrictions to those funds and how they can be utilized and what projects they can support, to require a health monitoring component to it, which was not part of the original scope of the grant. And so the governor, because they're going to have a special session coming up here shortly, is advocating to put 10 million of additional dollars to essentially not be required to be matched by the local level to help support applications to address that health monitoring component. And Mr. Phelan, or Mayor, you may know more about that piece than I do, but that was news that he indicated that he's not going to essentially hold harmless communities that are putting together this application with one scope and sequence in mind, and then now we have to deal with this health monitoring component that the state will kick in extra dollars to address that specific piece to make it ARPA compliant. So, Mr. Mayor.
Well, I think it's something that's going to be helpful for us as well, and something that he mentioned today. So the actual funds that the legislator had allocated for this were ARPA funds. So they're going to be using the same funds, and they kind of stepped in a little bit, if you give my opinion, that maybe it wasn't exactly ARPA eligible, but they're going to spend extra money to try to make sure that the cities and counties have the ability to use their ARPA funds through the design, and you had the word for it, medical.
Health monitoring.
Health monitoring. So they're gonna try to fix a workaround for that. I'd imagine there's quite a lot of that going on right now across the country with all this money out there. So that was interesting. That was news to us today, but it just shows the state's dedication. And as far as from the city side and me personally, I grew up with definitely blue collar roots, and you see students right now can go to a 4-year college in the humanities or some other field and get a master's and have $150,000 in student loan debt, and they can't get a job for 35 grand, and they live at home with their parents. I really enjoy the welding, the trades types of work, the medical technicians, the diesel techs, the mechanics, nursing as well. I mean, that's a huge one right now, and I'm sure you guys heard the last. Locally we're turning away, medical career students by the number of 75 to 100 a year that don't have enough space to get involved in this. And now we have a nationwide shortage on nurses, and students could come out of this likely with a CNA certification and jump right into that field. So it probably could be, it's probably 2 years late, but it's not going to be any less timely in the future. So it's definitely a project the city supports wholeheartedly and think needs to happen here. And we're dedicated on the operations side to fill gaps where it's needed. Personally behind the project, I'm one of the members of the finance committee. I think they even made me one of the chairs of that. Is that right? Careful, if you miss one meeting, they make you the chair. So anyways, we're definitely going to be pushing. We'll have to get council approval, but that's the direction we're going, and we're committed to making this happen. And as much trouble as the school districts have had to deal with, this could be a real win and a real positive thing for our community and our region. So very excited about it. But thank you.
I want to make one last comment, just from my perspective, because Diane asked, what's the ongoing and how are we going to fund this in the future? What I will say is an overwhelming piece of this is the industry support as you look at needs with different types of training supplies that need to be provided to do carpentry and anything that you think about when it comes to technicians and everything. So, I'm a John Deere dealer, so I always have to ask for the clothes, right? So, but I won't do that directly, but I will say it's a compelling opportunity when you think about one time to make a difference in the future of our direction of our community and region. And I think about the needs every day about what can I do to bring greater employment to Northwood or Larimore or Grafton or anywhere that we have such needs along with our local community. And changing the trajectory of our students' opportunities is a huge piece. So I want you to think about what you can do and commit to that like I am. And I also say that you have a direct opportunity to help with the curriculum that we develop for that academy and how that impacts you as a county within the governmental piece and how it helps industry. And whether it's law enforcement or anything else related to that. So we can directly impact it monetarily by doing things to help with curriculum and everything else that plays into it. So that's my last comment. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good questions.
Yes. I should have known the answer to this, but is there any career training in UAS?
Yes.
Already?
Aviation.
There's actually girl probably.
Currently?
Yeah.
Yes, the Grand Forks Public Schools does offer some programming, but this will provide other enhanced and expanded opportunity to do that as well.
It seems to be something that matters in the county these days.
Yeah. One of the things we took a look at, so you take a look at, raw data rather from Job Service or Bureau of Labor Statistics, and you find what is the greatest need now today. But we think that we did a pretty decent job in terms of looking at emerging careers, technology, and UAS, and we wanted to make sure that those areas that Grand Forks had strength and were growing were also supported, so we could support future workforce needs.
Well, I guess I just have a couple of comments. And I think I shared some of them with you by telephone, but as Ms. Nelson indicated, our budget is set for the next year. So, and we don't have a lot of flexibility in our budget. So the city has sales tax and various other means for revenue, but ours is just pretty much property tax, which is dedicated to various budgets throughout. So we have very little extra money. And right now we have none into the next year or for 1 year because that budget is already set. With respect to ARPA, I think the position of this commission is that we're going to be very careful about expending those funds. That's if there is, if they're not expended appropriately, there's the possibility of payback, and we would not have the ability to pay those funds back. So it better be in stone that we can use them before we'd ever do that. Then the second part of the ARPA problem is that if we use our ARPA funds for projects outside of the community or outside of the county, and we will use them on some, but on huge or big numbers such as you're talking about, we're going to have to cut back on some of the expenditures in the county, and the only way that that's going to work for us is we have to add it on the mill levy of the property owners. So they're going to pay for the project. And so that's problematic for us. Because for instance, if we have to add the mill levy for the correctional center project, they're going to be paying that for 20 years or 25 years. So we have to be very careful with those funds. Nobody's coming forward to say, let's help you out with the correctional center. That's going to be a $25 million project. Nobody's saying, let's give the county $3 million to build that project. So unless you have some. So I mean, those are just some general thoughts for the people that are here. And I look at the school district and I'm glad that mill levy passed for them. But once again, this would be another building with maintenance issues. So not sure. I think you need to take care of all those old buildings first, but that's just my thought.
I may.
Go ahead.
Sure. Couple of things. First of all, I appreciate we talked and appreciate the generosity to have a conversation last week. There is an ability, and I guess the mayor and Mr. Phelan have indicated that there may be an opportunity for the city to carry some of this for a while. So if the county were inclined to invest, could carry that for a couple of years or even up to 3 years. If you could work that into the budget, we would appreciate that. Number two, and with respect to Grand Forks Public Schools and the budget, I don't have the detail, and I'm not sure Mr. Ripley does, but the school district has made a number of improvements to their budget situation, sustainability, even before the referendum, so to put themselves in a much better position. And I agree that existing buildings have to be maintained, and you need to be mindful of that. And I think I'll just kind of refer and maybe channel a little bit of John Onken now indicating this is an investment. It's a new building, granted, and that needs to be carefully thought out about how those programs are delivered. But in terms of supporting industry, connecting industry and education, this is the facility to do that. I think Grand Forks Public Schools, either through the area center or directly through the local public school system, does an excellent job delivering the programming and the facilities that they have. Mr. Ripley talked just a little bit about medical careers. Can you imagine if we had 75 to 100 students additionally in those medical career tracks? And I don't know how many of those would stay in the region and would work for Ultra or Sanford or the Deaconess in Northwood, but a number of them would. And just the impact that would have on property tax within the communities, on different, on just general population growth and revenue to all county and school and city and park. I think that is a tremendous upside. And again, the reason why we are so involved in this is because of the workforce and population aspect of this. So I'll just reinforce those points.
Well, I appreciate that, but carrying the county for a year, and I actually don't like being carried, but carrying the county for a year really doesn't help, because as Ms. Nelson said, it would take 4.5 mills. We only have 2 mills left. So to come up with that money in our main budget is just not even reasonable right now. So
I can't offer on behalf of the city, but there have been conversations of 3 and maybe, I guess maybe 5 is an option. But just now really out in front of my skis, but I've had some conversations about the city making this project a priority and being able to carry some of this. When we go to industry, I'm sure that some of the industry partners that we hope will support it will want to have that option as well. So I suppose capacity is an issue and we have to talk about that, or they would and have to approve that. Again, can't speak for them, but that has been a discussion and hope for your positive consideration.
Yes.
I'll just make a comment and making it for myself. I'm not speaking for anyone else, but I think that they think like I do. That the concept we like, we'd love to be able to be involved, and that's what we're not going to, but you know, that would be a real plus or a bonus for our community and for the people that reside here, rural and within the city. But, you know, also recognizing we truly have some big needs for the county. And, you know, building wise, correctional, juvenile detention, all of those. I mean, and our facilities are like this one is 20 years old, 21 years old. So, you know, we're starting to see things that are happening here, but just expansions, you know, because we've outgrown the courthouse. We're, you know, we have changes at the correctional facility that need to be done. Juvenile detention, that building has got to go, you know, and so we're still sorting all of that through. And so I think I love the idea, and I think the rest of the commissioners do as well. But I personally, I just don't know how we can do it financially. And I know, granted, the city, you know, they're saying, let's work on this, you know, and extend it out. But Commissioner Falk was saying, I mean, if, you know, with the jail, I mean, that's going to be 25 years that we're going to have that cost. And, you know, the last thing we want to do is put a bigger burden on our constituents. Got to keep that in mind. We have to put our needs first, you know, so that we can continue to do business and do a good job of it. Keep our people safe in the buildings and things like that. But all I can say is, you know, I love your idea. But I don't know that I can't support it based on the needs we have. And I'm serious about that. If it wasn't a big deal, or if there was a way to get through that or around that or whatever, I certainly would vote for it, but we're up against a wall.
Just for, you know, for people that are here that may not be aware, at some point we have to build a building for the sheriff's department also. They're sort of tenants of the city right now. And hopefully they can stay there for 5 years, but we don't have the money right now for a plan for the sheriff. So I think we have to look at him first before we look at other payments outside of our county.
When you have emergency management, you got state's attorney's office that is.
But we'll take it under advisement and we'll see what we can do. But you know, realistically, I don't see $1.5 million coming from the county right now. And unless somebody else knows where the buy money is.
In my view, if we were a home rule county like many counties that are smaller than we are, if that was our charter, we would more fairly spread the cost of buildings around the whole county by sales tax rather than just property owners. I mean, look at all the people who shop in all the towns in this county. And that's from some of the things that we have to build. So unfortunately, we can't do that overnight, and I would like to see that be done. So we don't have these walls we run into all the time. I'm not excited about raising taxes, but I'd like to see fairer taxes, and I think sales tax is fairer in these circumstances than property tax, because we're just out of places to go. So that's just a comment going forward.
Chairman Falk, we'd love the opportunity to work with your staff here in the next couple of weeks We mentioned in the first presentation, and I appreciate all that's been said, really a one-time opportunity, state of North Dakota, the $10 million. They've used, federal coronavirus dollars to provide this, and they've been reluctant over the last 2 bienniums to make this funding available. So honestly, we don't know that this opportunity is going to present itself, so it's sort of a strike now or never, at least in my opinion. I guess can't say, but that's how I'm feeling. And aren't able to hold this together. I will say, and whether this resonates or not, but centers are moving forward with many with county investments in Dickinson and Watford City. I'm going to miss some here. Bismarck and Watkins.
Yeah, all those counties are home rule counties, and they have sales tax money. And that's, it's unfortunate we don't. This was tried before our time on the commission. Actually, it wasn't supported, I don't believe, by the city at that time. But those counties, when we go to Fargo, most of us go down there and we spend money. It supports their law enforcement centers on sales tax. But we don't have that here, so that's correct.
We'd love to work with the staff and Mr. Ford and Debbie over the next couple of weeks, and you sit under advisement. That was your comments, acting chairman, and maybe possibly bring this back again if there's a path forward identified.
Sure, that's fine.
Thank you.
I think we like the concept. We just don't have the finances for it, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Phelan.
Commissioner Falk, nice to see you in the commission.
Good to see you.
Thanks for having us today. I'm going to start out. I'm going to hand it over to Maureen Starstead, Mr. Blombach from the Grand Forks CEC, and then our mayor. He's going to anchor us home. So really the important part is that we attached a map that's included in the mayor's letter to you. And we have a lot of opportunities that we've been working with the Grand Forks Region EDC and others on some agribusiness opportunities. And we're going to call it our agribusiness park, where we currently have Simplot, Philadelphia, macaroni, and bitter refinery. And so really what's in front of us right now, we had an earlier meeting with Governor Burgum and some of his commerce staff, is that we are working hard to try to bring some significant investments back to Grand Forks that are in the agribusiness sectors. Some of these projects are game-changing projects that we can land. And there is some urgency because on one particular project, we're narrowing down to probably by the middle part of the month, they're going to make a determination regarding that particular project. The state of North Dakota has really stepped up too, and we spoke with Governor Burgum today. They have set aside some monies, and I'm sure the legislature will further engage on that in the areas of natural gas, water, and wastewater, and to go to industrial projects like we have here too. So they certainly are a partner along with transportation funding. Governor Burgum even mentioned a potential project that's going to need natural gas, and they've set aside some funding for that in the budget. And there's also some categories in the state's budget. What we've done ourselves, and I'm going to have Marie come up here and just kind of go over where we've put some of our ARPA funds. The one area that we do know that where ARPA funds are able are water, wastewater, and broadband. Those are kind of drawn out pretty close. So we've set aside 6.8 of our approximately $11+ million funds for wastewater treatment, just so that we can be more competitive on the wastewater side. Because then when we're looking at these agribusinesses that we're trying to attract, water and wastewater rates are really important. And the mayor will anchor it. He's talked to the developer himself specifically. So we're trying to be as competitive as possible. Time is of the essence. We are working with the state, and so really one of the other options is, can we work with the county on further investment that would make us even more competitive as we kind of finalize our numbers back to some of these agribusiness opportunities that we have. And so that's what the $3 million ask comes from. We certainly are the host. Grand Forks is the host to a lot of these agribusinesses, just because we have the infrastructure to host agribusinesses, right? Certainly, the crops are grown outside of the city of Grand Forks and in our greater region. And so where we see this is not only a city of Grand Forks issue, it's a regional issue of how can we make ourselves as competitive as possible, knowing that the kind of facilities that these businesses need, they need a city like Grand Forks to help host them so that we can deliver them water and we can also treat their wastewater as we move forward. That's really what it comes to. We're trying to be as competitive as possible. There's a decision in front of us. We know these are funds are eligible. We'd really like to partner with you on this. So it would be our almost $10 million contribution with the city 6.8, with your 3, we almost get to that 10 million. We would write that into some of our competitive opportunities here so that we can. Time is of the essence so that we know whether we can count on the county's investment or not, so that when we go back to the developer, it's kind of our final offer back to them as well. So that's our pitch today. We think it's great for not only the city of Grand Forks, it's great for the county, it's great for the region, because what we're trying to deliver here is going to help everybody throughout the entire region. We're just kind of hosting it from a facility perspective. And it would be game changing for property tax, sales tax, just business all over. And the businesses are confident. We know we're workforce challenged, but they're confident that they can hire the people at the right rates to bring in our community to grow our entire community. So with that, I'd ask Marie just kind of go over how we've allocated our ARPA funds. And I know one thing we really should be cherished is how our staffs work together. You know, whether it's Maureen and Jessica Bergeson in our finance department working with Ms. Nelson and Mr. Ford working together on these. So we all don't have to have one person trying to figure it out. We try to figure out these things together. So really appreciate our working relationship with staff and with the 2 governing boards. So with that, I hand it off to Maureen.
Thank you, Todd. Good afternoon, Commissioners. As Todd said, I'm Maureen Storsted. I'm the Finance Director for the City of Grand Forks. I know you were going to be speaking ARPA funds on your agenda, but Mr. Ford was unable to be here. But we do see 4 major categories of eligible expenditures related to the ARPA funds. Response to COVID-19 public health emergency and negative economic impacts would be the first. Respond to workers performing essential work during COVID-19, to make necessary investment in water, sewer, broadband infrastructure, which is related to what we're going to be speaking to today. And then for the provision of government services to the extent of the reduction in revenue. The city's revenue replacement that we calculated is roughly 1.26 million, as you see on the right-hand column of the spreadsheet that you should have been provided as part of the packet. We look to those funds to use toward public safety siren project, road infrastructure, and improvements to our city hall security. In sharing how the city is planning to allocate our other ARPA funds, we provided on that same handout, the middle column there in green, how we plan to allocate those funds. We have some dollars going toward community development software called Neighborly Software. We also have money set aside for Lara Center's POS system. We have some dollars set aside for mental health matters, as well as building ventilation in our particularly police building and city hall. But the majority by far, we've decided to place city's ARPA funds into both the dark fiber infrastructure and utility infrastructure, with $6.8 million of that going toward the wastewater utility infrastructure, which we see as just an investment, needed investment in wastewater improvements, but also helps set us up for the future, making us more attractive to those large industries that Todd referred to. Any additional ARPA county dollars that we could put toward this would greatly help us toward that effort of building that needed infrastructure for future attraction of businesses that would help both the city but also other areas within the county and the region. I completely understand wanting to make sure we have proper uses of eligible funds with ARPA. To your previous conversation, this would definitely be an eligible use of funds. I understand the concern of pulling back any federal funds if you go outside those eligibility requirements. This would be an eligible use. Local governments are authorized to transfer fiscal recovery funds to other constituent units within the government. They actually give the example in the documents of a county is able to transfer funds to a city, town, or school district within it. This approach, it's really intended to help provide funding to local governments with needs that exceed the current allocations under statutory formulas. So with that, the county would remain still responsible for oversight or monitoring the reporting requirements, reporting information. The city would bear that and make sure you get everything you need as far as the county. With that, I am going to turn it over to Mr. Baum.
Thank you, Maureen. Brandon Baumbach, Director of Business Development on behalf of the Grand Forks Region Economic Development Corporation. And in that function at the EDC, we work to do a lot of the lead development on behalf of the city and county when it comes to economic development, both within, as in the companies that are here today, and those without that are considering our region. And I just wanted to take a minute to underscore the pipeline of opportunities that we've seen lately. We've seen significant deal flow since the pandemic. There seems to be a combination of dollars saved, waited for investment, a confidence post that is done post pandemic, a confidence post the first year of pandemic, and low interest rates. So there's been a lot of opportunity across state borders and across country borders that we've seen come and take an interest within our region. A lot of those value-added agriculture. And I would say that's been some of the largest growth opportunity put in front of the organization as we solicit them. They are seeing an opportunity for value-added agriculture because we do have that crop grown in the region, but without that added value piece, it goes elsewhere. But part of that process and major inputs as discussed today is water and natural gas. These utilities are very important, as you understand. I'm here to underscore that importance and just let you know too that the opportunities in front of us today are not just speculative. I've mentioned in the Ag Park, we do have Simplot, we do have Philadelphia Macaroni, Red River Biorefinery. These are growth industries that are here today. And we've had conversations that have taken quite some time and gotten to us to a position where the timing is right for future or attraction opportunities to our community. Work with some numbers, and some of those can be investments that begin payback to the county, the city, the school board, and taxing entities very soon, as in post completion of such projects, should they be successful, to the tune of, for the county in some magnitude of these projects of being nearly $200,000, even post some scenarios with property tax exemption, but even as large as $2 million annually through the current mill levy rate for property tax should these investments come. There's no guarantees of any of that. I just want to let you know, as far as the scope of the opportunity in front of us today, it is large. And it's dependent on these types of investments. So we very much appreciate your consideration of this in conjunction and partnership with the city. With that, I think I will turn it over to the mayor for final comments.
Thank you, Acting Chair Falk and the commission. I didn't get to do the proper reading the first time around. We didn't get the 1.5 for that project, so we figured we'd double that and take another shot at this. Throw that out there first.
I like a guy who swings on the fence.
Well, first, I think we all have to take a long view, and I really appreciate Commissioner Knopf, pointing out the long-term needs. Right now, the county is in a tough spot because you don't have that sales tax growth. You don't have enough sales tax to draw from. You don't have home rule charter. What you do have is property tax. So, realistically, that's the way that you're going to be able to grow long-term revenues. And there should be no better champion of your county seat, which is Grand Forks, than the county itself, because that's where the largest improvements of property tax are going to come from, without a doubt. And some simple numbers that he was hitting on, just this one project. I don't want to see one of these projects slip through the cracks. When you're talking Simplot size projects, I can remember back in the day when Marvin Windows was lost here. Now Grafton's been sitting on that for the last 25 years. That was a tough pill to swallow. I'd hate to lose one to Iowa or any other place, but just property tax alone with the tax increment financing that we've been looking at would bring to the county around 200,000, a little bit less than $1 million a year the first 10 years. The next 10 years would be about 2.5 mils, because it would change to 25%. And then in ongoing in the future, it'd be roughly 10 mills that you're gaining a year from just this one project. So without having home rule charter, the best way for your growth, or for our growth, and for anybody's growth for that matter, school districts is the same boat. They don't have the revenue from sales tax either. They have the state, but these types of projects are the best chance for growth and to build up not just the city, but the county and this whole region. And I think if one of these fall, we're going to get a number of these that are going to fall, and there's a lot of interest. We're just a little overpriced right now, and we need to be competitive. If we thought that, we had this in the bag and we could get it done, we wouldn't be here. I don't like having to come here. You don't like carrying debt. I don't like begging and asking for money either. So, we're here. We think this is a great partnership. We've got the state on board. We've already talked on natural gas and working those numbers down. We're working with the State Water Commission. I got a meeting tomorrow with the director of the Water Resource. I don't remember what the name is. The North Dakota Water Resource Department is coming, and we're looking under every proverbial seat cushion that we can to get this project done, because this is going to be a real game changer for the community. Governor Burgum was here today, just looking around at all the growth that's taking place, and we've got to keep the momentum going. And we are confident workforce wise that we're going to get there too. We just need a little help to get this across the finish line, and I'm hoping to see many more fall. And I think this is a fairly justifiable project. When people look at where you're spending money on wastewater, this will have some benefit to the rates of all the county members as well that use the the wastewater facility, which is roughly 84% of the county. And then on top of that, just looking at that property tax growth in the future, I think it's a phenomenal opportunity. I just don't want to see it go to waste. I know that the project developers on this recent one are watching very closely. One thing that they highlighted that they liked about our location was just the way we collaborate and work together with the county, the state, and everyone that's come together to make this happen. So that's another big part, another opportunity to show that just beyond the money. And on top of that, I think, Todd, we talked about this. So far, we'd be the first community that's gone out there and actually started sharing funds on the ARPA front and making things happen. So it'd be a really positive impact statewide, I think. And Grand Forks County and the city probably hasn't had the best relationship in the past, and we need to work together when it comes to this. The sheriff's department, getting that set up, the jail. I mean, we're sending people there too, and I think this can dawn a new era of companionship and working together. And just, I guess I'll leave it at that. If you got any questions for me, I'll stand up here and take the grilling.
I have a couple, but there are comments, I guess, and I registered these, I think, previously, but I see where ARPA funds could be used on the wastewater project, and I'm not necessarily opposed to that right now. Although one of the things that concerns me is one of the projects I think that's behind this wastewater need is one of these companies uses huge amounts of water. And that concerned me this summer when I was limited to 2 days a week watering. Well, if this company uses 6, 7, 8 million gallons of water a day, we're all going to be watering with little cans rather than sprinklers, and our golf courses will be dry and everything else. Because I don't see where the water is coming from. Now, I should be addressing this to Mr. Phelan. He's a former engineer, still an engineer maybe, but maybe he's got an idea, but I don't see it coming here in the next couple of years at least.
Well, there was nobody that was more concerned about rain, especially with working on this project than me and Todd. I think we came out every morning and did a rain dance, and it didn't work till about August. I would say on our water needs, keep in mind, as long as that river is flowing, we don't draw off a reservoir. So as long as the river is flowing, water is going past us. So really, when we did those restrictions, we're just planning ourselves for a time when the water doesn't flow past us. Maybe I shouldn't have said that because now everybody knows the trick. But we've got obviously the Red Lake River where we normally draw 90% of our water from. The Corps of Engineers kept that going at a little over 100 cubic feet a second. So we could have got enough water from that. Obviously, that's going to be a concern going into the future, and we're going to continue to work with the Red River Valley Water Supply Project to get Missouri River water down through the diversion and into Fargo and heading up. And that's an insurance policy for tough times. Realistically, we want to keep drawing from the Minnesota side because it's much cleaner water and easier to treat. A neat part about the one project we're working now is they aren't going to need water treatment from us. It's going to go raw water directly to the site via our pipelines by the water treatment center. But I mean, part of our asset is that we do have access to water and river water there. And yeah, we are in a little bit of a drought, and it's an issue, but we haven't seen, the river stop flowing like it did in the 80s. Could that happen? Of course, and that's a concern, but, we're working on the back end to have other options. I don't think we can stop progress worrying about water. That would really concern me.
No, I don't think we can stop progress, but this is one big demand on water. And, we look at reservoirs in Ashtabula. I come from that general area of the country many years ago. That's relatively a small reservoir when you think about the water for eastern North Dakota. So that's not something you can necessarily count on as supplying water for ag producers or whatever. That would be water for the rest of us to be able to continue to exist on. So, that's one of my concerns. And then of course the cost in this, it seems like there's a tremendous amount of infrastructure money being propped up for these potential companies. And, the payback is going to be really long-term on it in my mind.
It all depends on what economic numbers you use. If you start talking about 700 employees, direct and indirect, you can use a lot of different, revenue economic models, different models that you want to see how quickly the payback is. But adding people that are spending more money in town, that are buying houses, that are, you can add it up pretty quickly if you want to. It depends what numbers you want to use, but on the infrastructure side, we're going to be made whole by any of these projects within a certain period, and we're comfortable and confident. We've got AE2S that does all of our consulting on that, and they're not going to lead us astray on that front. So I would say there's more of a cost of losing a project that's $700 million and not getting added at all to the property tax rolls. So instead of having $200K a year coming to the county and later to be more than $2 million a year, you've got zero and you're waiting for the next project, and the next person that comes in looks at you and says, why couldn't you get this deal done? Now you want us to come here. So something's got to tip the scales. And like I said, we haven't had this is a Simplot level project, which I think, many of us would love to have that one expand. Why not have another project that's bigger or even the same size and diversify us a little bit, so it's not just potatoes, it's possibly corn too. As far as Lake Ashtabula, we've got, we did have to hit that on our base. I think on our average usage now, if you can accumulate the whole year, we do have about a year and a half roughly of water supply out of that 20,000 acre feet. Is that right out of there, Todd? So it is a small reservoir if you're talking like a 1880s type of drought situation, but we got to keep working on that Missouri. That Red River Valley water supply is huge for the whole Red River Valley, and we're working with Mayor Mahoney and their team to get that done too.
Any questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
members of the commission, the city is correct. It is an eligible use of ARPA. We will have next year $13.5 million in ARPA funds. And we have about $40 million of requests for that money. So it will be up to the commission to decide how to spend that money, but it is an eligible use.
Yeah, and I know it's a tough thing. You look at the state when they had $1 billion, just the State Department's loan up, 4.7 billion came in before the legislators even sunk their claws into that. So we get that. We see this as an investment that will have some payback on the property tax side, and half the funds that should be in your account now, and the other half would come next year. The time is kind of the essence. Not that that wouldn't change later, but there's an opportunity that's on the table now that we don't want to miss on. But we would like a decision, at least in the temporary tonight. If you pass on this, it's essentially a no for this project, just based on the timeline. We were hoping to have more time, but unfortunately, that's not the case.
I don't know, I'll throw it out to the commission, but I don't know how we can decide this issue tonight because we do not know the rest of these projects. If we have $40 million in demands and we feed everybody barely, you get $1 million or $1.5 million. I mean, that's kind of the way it goes, but and that hurts our taxpayers also. They're gonna have to pay on the end of this, is my guess. But yes, Commissioner.
Well, helpful to have Mr. Ford here today because he's got a whole memo on all the other projects. I don't wanna wait for 2 weeks though to be talking about it. I'm suggesting that we maybe have a special meeting to just go over that ARPA memo and all the requests that have been made here today and are sitting before us and see where we are, because I can't really make hide nor hair of where the dollars are and where they have to go and what we can possibly do something. So I think I really wouldn't like to wait and that happens just in the course of a meeting like this again. I'd like to focus on that one day.
I'm looking at my calendar here and yes.
I have a comment. So 13.5 million, and we have requests for 8.5,
No, 40 million.
40 million. Yeah. And that, does that even include our needs?
It does.
Okay. Because,
Majority of it is our needs.
pardon?
The majority of the 40 million is the county's.
Okay. So,
Yeah, I think that's what we need to talk about.
so that, you know, it's like, I'm sorry, but we have needs too.
Well, I still think there's a way we might get to a solution here. Just running things through my mind, but I think we need to meet relative to our ARPA funds. The 12th is Tuesday. Would that, is that still within your guidelines?
Yeah, that'd be tight, but then we could make it work.
Well, we could, I don't know when Peach is back.
The 12th. We look at the calendar for the 12th of the
I know, but
Grand Sky and the generals and.
yeah.
It's my last day before I go to DC for the
All right,
officer inscription.
how about like the 11th?
We'll make anything work on our side, definitely.
Yeah, and this is problematic for us too, but I think we have to try to make it work.
Yeah, I'd like to see what we can do.
How about
11
the
works for me.
11, at what time? Commissioner Engen, you're the one who actually has a job. Oh, you're self-employed.
The board was scheduling things so much
All right.
for the general that the whole day's open except for dinner with people like you.
Yeah,
And,
that
the
night, the
gen-
11th. I think we're free, but yeah, till that dinner, so.
Anytime
Well,
during the day.
could be a contentious dinner.
Yeah, we'll see.
We want Mr. Ford here with me, would we not?
Yeah, he'll be
Oh, yeah,
available.
I think, Commissioner, I think the Monday, the 11th is the best day, because Tuesday, we have a joint meeting.
Yeah.
And then we do have some, and then there are,
That
I
might
think
be a
Monday,
contentious.
I think Monday is the
Grand
day.
Sky, ribbon cutting out there and joint commission,
Yeah.
city council.
Is 1 o'clock?
Monday, yes.
1 o'clock work for you, Mr. Engen?
Yes, of course.
All right, let's set it for 1 o'clock on the 11th.
Mr. Ford will make it.
Yeah, and if
You notice that out, Debbie, for us. Thank you.
there's anything else you need on our side, data-wise, that helps you make your decision beyond just, you know, your own discussion on here, but just obviously let us know.
No, but I might call you on an issue, so.
Sounds good,
All right.
absolutely. You got my number, right?
All right.
All right. Thank you very much for your time, much appreciated.
Commissioner Paul, maybe just because we got our CIA guy here too, is there something we can do this week with among staff just to, so we can put that to bed on that Monday? Would that be helpful to you?
What's
Um,
CIA?
We're impacted.
Okay.
The other CIA.
Well, I thought we put that to bed, but.
I mean, we certainly, Marines here too, and we could work some possible solutions, alternatives. In the
Yeah,
meantime.
we can talk about it, but I just don't see us being, I don't see us being able to do both these projects. That's just, I mean, we're gonna stretch it to find money for one. So who gets the money? I don't know.
Well, ARPA doesn't work for the
Impact.
CIA.
Yeah, that's gonna be a problem.
You know, CARES money is all being
Yeah.
put in together already. Then,
He's welcome to talk to us, but we'll see about it, but I just don't think the accounting is there on all of this. 1 o'clock, we'll talk, and Mr. Ford, he's out short term here. It was unavoidable. He would have liked to have been here, but it was a family emergency, so 1 o'clock on Monday. Here.
o'clock on Monday?
Thanks again.
You bet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm distracted here. I'm writing myself notes.
And then I put that in the calendar.
COVID response.
COVID response team, I guess I would be next.
That'd be me.
That'd be you. Okay, thank you.
All right. So Commissioner Falk and the rest of the commissioners, I'm here to speak on behalf of the COVID response team, and there's 2 quick updates. So I promise 2 minutes or less. The first update is I want to say how well things have been going with the partnership between HR and public health with managing the COVID cases with our employees. Had a little bit of a rough start getting things going with the managers. We've been able to work with our assigned person, Jackie. Jackie and Roberta have now become best friends. And we're, I think we've been able to come up with some very good information for managers. And we're able to keep people working when we can keep them working. We can keep them working remotely. We can try to limit the amount of exposure to the rest of the employees. The one trend we have been seeing is we have, the numbers are increasing of employees that are either identified as a close contact or their household members are either a close contact or their household members may be positive. And we are seeing that that's trending a little higher involving children. So children who can't go to daycare, children who are tested positive. So, and children unfortunately right now are in the unvaccinated population. So nothing that isn't, I mean, nothing's a surprise. So that's my first update. The second update had to do with the request for us to work with the Veteran Service Office on the occupancy for the conference rooms. And Kari from Emergency Management and Lou from the Veteran Service Office were able to go through. They laid out the room. They have made it more difficult for people to put extra chairs or extra tables in the room. It's also been communicated out to department heads as to what the occupancy level is and what the updated checklist is. And that information is also provided to any group who reaches from the outside wanting to use the rooms. They're very matter of fact. This is what the occupancy is. Masks are required. You would need to monitor the mask usage, and that no, you will not be able to add more standing room only. So I think that that worked very well, and now people seem to be much more content having some guidelines.
You have a number in occupancy?
I believe that it is 21. They were out there with the tables, they were out there with the tape measures, because it's amazing what you think is 6 feet. And then you're like, oh, that's really only 4 and not 6. So, but it seems to have worked well, and the groups that had been asking have found, you know, alternative spaces. So that's the only other updates I have. I'll stand for any questions that you guys have regarding COVID response.
Any questions?
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Scribbled on my agenda so much I can hardly tell where we're at.
I'm an 11E, do we have that, am I approval?
That's that resiliency. That's the base resiliency. I just sent a text to Mr. Ford. I'd like to add that on our Monday. It'll take 5 minutes. And
Let's do that.
board can cover that. It's a base resiliency grant.
Right.
Contract that we're
Well, there,
gonna make a recommendation on. If we could add that on Monday, we'll take care of that then.
That'll be short.
Yeah, thank you. The next is the state's attorney's office.
I have nothing to report today. Thank you.
Much appreciated. Okay, next is the committee reports. Commissioner Knopf.
I have, the only thing I have to report without looking is at one point in time, not too long ago, was it the last meeting? We did approval, or was it approval for Kari, for emergency management to get a new vehicle with ARPA, with CARES, ARPA money? CARES?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Commissioner, there was never a
No, there
motion
was never
made.
a.
Okay, all right.
It was on her list, her
It
wish
was on
list.
It
her
was,
list.
you know, that spreadsheet that was put together.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things was the vehicle firm.
So anyhow, why don't you
Okay.
give the report?
All right. So, I went to the, North Dakota Association of Counties, and, at a booth was Nelson Motors. And I remember, Kari's, request for a vehicle. So I called her and, talked to her. Nelson Motors over ordered their 2021 expeditions. And so they have white and black. And they're actually not building 2021s anymore. The 2022s are going to go about $2,000 to $4,000 more than the 2021s. And they, like I said, they had extra ones. And Kari likes black, she said. And so I said, well, I'll give it to your commissioner, Commissioner Knopf, and see what the board wants to do. But these these expeditions will be into Nelson Motors in about 2 weeks. So if we are interested in getting one for her, it is available. From where?
Money.
Nelson
No,
Motors.
no, the money.
I know. ARPA money.
ARPA money, and not only that, when you make a motion, I would like the category that it would fall under, and it would be 1.7. So I know where to report that, the ARPA funds that are being spent.
See, on the CARES money, we don't have any restrictions, so that gives us a lot of flexibility, but we have all these demands for ARPA money, which is driving us all crazy, I know. But I'd like to do whatever we can for emergency management ASAP, because they've been under tremendous stress.
One more thing, Mr. Falk. That vehicle of hers is gonna be worth at least 10 grand in trade, her old one.
Okay, so we could trade that against this offer from them.
Well, we'd sell it at auction, we get
Sell it
more
at
than auction, we
Okay.
get for trade.
Sure. All right.
And we don't
Well, I
have to-
suppose the other side of the coin is, we look around and we find out, for instance, Ms. Hanson, what kind of a vehicle hers is. We keep a better vehicle.
Remember, I put a new motor in when I was sheriff?
I know, but it's still an old vehicle.
Yeah, but it runs like a top.
Okay, we'll figure that out.
Okay.
But I think I'm in agreement, we take care of this vehicle, and it's gonna be cheaper now than it is next year.
Oh, yeah.
We don't need a bid.
This is
Well,
under
this-
the state fleet bid.
Yeah, it's under the state fleet.
So,
I move approval of the request to buy that vehicle.
okay. We have a motion from Commissioner Gann, second from Commissioner Ross. Any further comments? We don't have any. I think we have okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's passed.
ARPA funds, category 1.7.
Yes, out of
Thank you.
category 1.7.
Kari's online, isn't she?
Yes, Kari, is that all right with you? You're on mute.
Yes, sir. I'm doing a happy dance. It's good you can't see me.
You know, just as a comment, white cars are much easier to keep clean than black, you know.
Yeah.
It's true, but they become invisible in snowstorms.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, you're always out.
We've got black cars. Always black. Yeah, you, white's easy to keep clean.
Okay, you're right about the snowstorms. Most of us aren't out in them, so thank you for mentioning that, Carly.
So
Okay,
other than that, that's all I have.
well,
That's all that I am.
That's good news.
Sheriff Ross, or Commissioner Ross did,
Yeah, Sheriff Ross.
whoever you are.
Sheriff, we call him
Crossing
Crossing
the masked man.
Sheriff Ross.
Okay, Commissioner Ingen.
Well, I was out of state for half of the time since the last meeting, so I have nothing to report.
Mr. Ross.
MPO, still working on the ad hoc committee, getting their recommendations together to have to the MPO by the end of the year, reference a second bridge. So that's kind of been the hot topic.
I think we were just all waiting for when the date it's gonna be built is.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well, any of us still be on the
And I
Mine
went,
would be more like.
and I went to the North Dakota Association of Counties. That was a very, very good convention, I thought. A lot of good information. It was really well attended. I mean, it was packed in there, so.
Super spreader event.
Well, we're talking Burley and Morton, so yeah.
Some of their rates are about 30% of vaccination.
Yeah. And everybody was being very nice, very orderly.
Okay, next is myself and we have the base resiliency contract, which we'll talk about on Monday. We had a couple of different meetings on that, but we finally got it ironed out and we'll bring that up. And I don't have anything else other than that. So that puts us down to unfinished new business. Ms. Nelson.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, the North Dakota State Fair Association would like a state fair delegate. So if you would like to make an appointment for someone to be the delegate for the state fair, that would be good. I need to submit it in writing by October 27th.
Are you the incumbent?
Sorry?
Are you the incumbent? Already? I mean, I'm not saying you have to, but you have to do it.
Anybody went last year.
Yeah.
Diane has done it for many years.
The thing is that, well, last year, no, because of COVID.
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna go. And the meeting's about 2 hours long, maybe 3. To go all the way to Minot and back.
So I'm kind of reading between the lines. Maybe we take a pass on it this year.
You can delegate me.
Okay, yeah. Well, then you can decide if you decide not to.
It's only fair.
We have a motion to delegate Commissioner Knopf to the North Dakota State Fair.
So moved.
So moved. Second, Mr.
Second, yeah.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Motion approved. Next is the 4-H Award Day sponsorship.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, in the past, you have given $20 for that scholarship. I think one year you gave 60, but most years you give 20.
This is the kind of monetary request that makes it possible to grant. So I move approval of it.
For $20.
$20.
Talking to me.
$20 for the 4-H.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Commissioner Ingen for $20 on the awards day sponsorship. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Ross. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes.
Every year I attend that awards banquet and they love it.
But even at $20?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that the year that we went out summits. I had asked for more money.
Well, you better remember.
But they're fine with it and they love it, so it's usually in October, I think it is.
Next, we have the NDAC conference door prize.
Madam Chair, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, as you all know, the conference was this little
Yeah.
weekend, and I got this on Friday. I'm like, oh yeah, we forgot the $100 door prize. So I called Commissioner Knopf, asked her what I should do, and she said, ask the commission. If they don't pay, I will.
Oh, okay. So we want to approve it retroactively.
Yeah.
Can we do that? I make a motion to do that.
Okay.
We
have a motion. Do we have a second from? Second, all right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes.
Thank you.
Save Commissioner Knopf $100.
Thank you very much.
Okay, correspondence. We're moving too quickly here.
Well, the court facility improvements and maintenance fund, if we want to apply for that, I can give it to Mr. Ford, and if he has something, he can apply.
I think that's a real plan.
Okay.
Okay. The courts will always have something there, I'm sure, so.
Well, they talk about it all the time.
Okay.
Don't they, David?
Okay, next is the North Dakota Public Service Commission.
Mr. Chairman, member of the commission, I have no idea why I received this, but there it is.
It's just informational. I think.
Yeah.
When it's read through it and see how much we have to do.
Yeah. And thank you letters.
Well, I think it was just, didn't they have to do an annual report or something? That's the annual report.
We changed it a little bit.
Just glad they're planting trees and shrubs.
That's it. Thank you letters from those that are contracted services. When they turned in their agreement, they gave us, or gave me what they.
Does anyone have anything else for the good of the order?
No, sir.
We have a motion to adjourn. Motion by Commissioner Ross, second by Commissioner Engen. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We're adjourned.
So Mr. Ford isn't here.